I am back. Do let me know if you can see me. So this barrack was one of the 4 barracks which were built along the perimeter, and it lasted till our days. In the basement they kept the weapons. Not sure who found me. Michelle? Adrian, can you please put the link? To the chat of the previous stream, because YouTube crashed and didn't let me to rejoin it, to reconnect. I see, Michelle. Thank you so much. I will try to send an email. I see. So let's hope George will get my email. I just sent him an email. So on the corner there is one of the 4 barracks which were built along the perimeter. In the cellar there was storage for guns. The windows were made for the defenders, both in the cellar for the guns. They also had a resting room for rest. And this is one of the few structures which lasted till our days. These days it's a small museum of this place. And you can see the shells there. And that's how it looked at the start of the war. Let's continue. So on August 25th, and in 1939, and basically in 1939 we know, and we talked about that the Poles were anticipating the war with the Nazi Germany. They just didn't know when it would start. And following what happened with Sudetenland in Czechia, the Anschluss of Austria, so they were preparing for the war. They reinforced the garrison here secretly. Secretly they built here a bit more fortifications, but they were basic, like trenches, for example, or basic fortifications which they could build using the tree trunks. They brought here more guns, and they reinforced the man force of the depot house by taking the civilians out in the military uniforms and replacing them with the professional military people. The most important barrack was right here, and quite recently they reconstructed the size and the shape of this barrack. This barrack was essential in defending the coastline access, and we started our tour from the coastline, from the beach, and the access to the peninsula from the mainland. And that's the road which is part of that strip of land which connects the peninsula with the mainland. This barrack was completely erased by the Nazis during this battle, and pretty much all of its defenders were killed. When the war ended, the remains of their bodies were found here by those who took part in this battle and who survived. They started doing here preservation works, and the small cemetery was created in the post-war decades. And here are the photographs of the members of the garrison who were here. And more remains of this barrack. So as part of the fortifications, the connection between the peninsula and the mainland was walled off with a brick wall. And besides building the 5 barracks along the perimeter, they also dug trenches and some wooden and earth, sort of narrow, short walls along the peninsula. That's the cemetery. So on August 25th, 1939, the Nazis sent here the battleship Schleswig-Holstein, named after that region which we visited earlier during this trip. And according to the historians, the initial plan was to start shootings here the following day, on August 26, 1939. However, that was postponed because Hitler became aware of the pact that was signed between Poland and France, the Joint Defense Pact. And he started to basically hesitate when to start shootings here. Finally, the order was given to start them early morning on September 5th, 1939. And that was the date when the Nazi Germany invaded Poland. And historians still today don't have an agreement on when exactly the first attack happened. But if you take all of the opinions, it happened between 4 o'clock in the morning and 4:47 in the morning. And the Nazis, relying on the data from the intelligence, were thinking that it would take them from 10 minutes up to a few hours to conquer that peninsula. And that didn't happen. The peninsula was able, and the garrison kept fighting for 6 days. They surrendered on September 7th, 1939, when basically Krakow had been already occupied and the Nazi army was in the Warsaw suburbs. So at first, the mariners from that Nazi battleship docked within approximately 200 miles away from the peninsula, attacked the island. They incurred heavy losses and had to go back to the battleship. The Nazis got the Luftwaffe, the Air Force, involved, but they had to wait for the Air Force to get here because of the weather. And following the heavy bombardment, and during those heavy bombardments, this main barrack, which secured the access to the peninsula from the land and from the sea, was completely destroyed. And that's when the defenders of the barrack, who were the members of the garrison, basically were killed, most of them. And with that barrack gun, it became a bit easier. But the rest of the garrison, located in the remaining 4 barracks, continued fighting. And the Nazis, of course, didn't expect that. According to the most recent research, several times over the course of those 7 days, the head of the garrison wanted to surrender, but his deputy and other members didn't let him do it. Finally, following the last meeting, which was their last gathering, which was held on September 6, 1939, the decision was made to surrender because they were running short on the supplies. They knew that the Nazis by that time had reached Warsaw suburbs, that Krakow had been occupied, and most of the Polish army had been defeated. So most of the defenders had been wounded severely, and basically they didn't see any other option but to surrender. And on September 7, 1939, the garrison surrendered. The Nazis, in respect basically of this fierce defense, let the commander of the Polish garrison to keep his saber. Those who surrendered were sent as prisoners of war to different camps, and many of you survived in those camps. And when the war ended, they were the main driving force behind creating the memorial here, behind doing those diggings, looking for the remains of what left here, preserving them and creating a memorial. And that's what's left of another barrack. On the poster here, we can see how it looked when the war started. In 1960s, during the communist times, the memorial was created here on top of the hill. It towers over the peninsula. It's 25 meters high, which is about 80 feet high. And these days, it's one of the most important World War II sites for the Poles visiting the area, and for those who are interested in learning about the World War II history. So according to the official stats, around 570 Nazis fought here against around 220 Polish soldiers and officers. The Nazi losses were about 50 people. The Polish losses were 15 people killed and around 120 wounded. But what was really important for the Poles at the time was the fact that that garrison managed to fight for 6 full days. So that really boosted the morale of the Polish army and the resistance during the Second World War. And look at that cruise ship, which we saw at the beginning of the tour. We saw it sailing into the harbor. So the phrase there says, "Never again." And that's the memorial which was created during the communist days. It's a Viking cruise ship. Let me zoom in. So on one side, the peninsula is borders on the Bay of Danzig, the Baltic Sea, and on the other side, on this canal, which was created in the early 1900s. I wonder if George found us. And then you can walk all the way to the top and get the view of the peninsula. Thank you, George. Because I was concerned, I emailed you the link. So 200, in the communist days, they were saying that less than 200, about 150 members of the garrison. Now they say that between 210, 220 Poles were fighting here against 570 Germans. On board of that Nazi ship, which docked here on August 25th, there were 225 mariners. Plus, by that time, the Nazis had the SS unit in Danzig, which joined the mariners, and plus they were supported by the Luftwaffe, and that was essential for conquering this peninsula. Because following the first attack, they realized that they would not be able to do it without the support of the Luftwaffe. At first, they underestimated the number of people in the garrison and of the fortifications, although basic, but they had been built by the Poles. Then, following the defeat in the first attack, when they had a lot of casualties among the mariners, they overestimated the defense of the Poles and requested the support from the air. The support from the air reached this peninsula only on the second day because of the weather. Once that main barrack, the 5th barrack in the center, was pretty much a shell, became a shell following the air raid, it became a bit easier. Nevertheless, the Poles lasted here for 5 more days until the end of the day on September 6th. On September 7th, in the morning, they showed the white flag and surrendered. These days, this is the new port of Danzig. So later today, my time, early morning your time, we're gonna do a rerun of the tour. Also, I look forward to seeing you in Danzig for the final tour of this beautiful city of Gdańsk, the Gdańsk specials, which will run at 7 my time, 1 p.m. East Coast time, 10 a.m. West Coast time. We're gonna do the specials tour, which is gonna be different from all other tours that we've done here, but it will include the walk around the old town and the embankment, but focus is on the different sites and different stories. And that's our last day of a 2-week trip along northern Germany and Poland. So it pretty much can be seen from afar. So these days, the most recent research says that the commander of the garrison basically was shell-shocked all the time during the siege, and the actual commander was his deputy. But getting closer to the end of the siege, the surviving members of the garrison gave lifetime vows not to ever talk about that. And only in 1990s, some records were found by recent historians that the actual commander of the garrison here was his deputy. And that was known, that became known after the end of the war. But because the official commander came from a common family with a common background, his father was a worker and his mother was also either a worker or just came from the countryside, and his deputy, who became the actual commander of that siege, came from a Polish noble family. The communist government preferred not to make that info public and stuck to the official information that the commander had been in charge of the garrison throughout the whole siege. The deputy also survived and lived up until 1960s in Krakow. So thank you so much for staying up late. Thanks for joining me here on this special date. The phrase says never again. And today on May 8th, we are celebrating the 80th anniversary in war over Nazism. And we're here at Westerplatte, the peninsula which saw the first battle, not the shootings really, but the first battle of the Second World War. John Paul II was here. He was also in Sopot, where we were yesterday. Over there is a quotation that belongs to him. And that's pretty much the end. That's the end of this walk. So thank you so much for staying up late. Thank you for finding the continuation of this live stream. Sorry for this technical issue, but that's YouTube. That's something out of my control. And surprisingly, sometimes it lets me resume the previous stream like it did yesterday, and sometimes it doesn't. I don't have this option. So sleep well, and I hope to see you back in Gdańsk. Back in Gdańsk tomorrow your time, later today my time. Gonna catch my bus and go back to the city and prepare for the day. I need to check out and do a lot of work till I see you back here for another run, but I know it's way too early for most of you. 3 p.m. local time, 9 a.m. American East Coast time, or the special store which gonna run at 1 p.m. American East Coast time, 7 p.m. my time. I'm gonna fix the time here. So thanks again for your generous support of this trip. Thank you for traveling with me, but I look forward to seeing you back here today. We have one more new tour. The rerun, okay, Michelle, I got it. Thank you. The recordings will be available when I get home tomorrow. Sleep well. See you in a bit. Bye for now.